Shooting with a wide angle lens is a great way of drawing the viewer into the image, but it does pose a few significant problems, especially if we're very close to our foreground. So in today's video, I'll be sharing an alternative method that we can use to overcome one of the biggest problems when composing a wide angle photo. Hello and welcome back to the channel. So we're here at the wonderful Pembrokeshire coastal path today to capture a couple of images. But I'd like to share with you a technique that I've been working on, I've been experimenting with over the last few weeks. I'm finding useful for certain situations. So we'll be touching on that. We'll be going through the setup phases and also the post-processing stages too. So lots to cover in today's video. So let's head on up the trail, see if we can find a composition to work on and get stuck into it. So the technique I'm talking about today is called focal length stacking or blending, and it's a method of blending several images together shot at different focal lengths. So why would we want to blend different focal lengths together? Well, I think for landscape photography in particular, it can be very useful, when you're shooting a scene with a wide angle lens, when the camera is positioned very, very close to the foreground, but when we also have a subject in the distance that we want to be, prominent within the scene as well. So typically with a wide angle lens, when we're very, very close to the foreground, objects in the distance can appear further away than they actually appear with our own eyes. So shooting a wide shot for the foreground and a slightly tighter shot for the background could overcome this problem. It could also eradicate problems with distortion as well. For me though, I think the key thing is to try to make the image look as natural as possible. We're definitely not trying to fake anything, we're just trying to give it that natural look. So I've finally got my composition set up, and as you can see, it's a bit of a tricky one. I've had to splay the tripod legs out on this embankment here, which is really tricky. But I found a composition that I think works perfectly for focal length blending. And you can see how close I am. I'm literally about 8 inches away from this flower just here. And that's my main sort of foreground interest because I'm shooting really wide. It's really accentuating that flower against these dark cliffs here. And the focal point in the distance there is Coldy Island. And as I'm sitting here now, this island really dominates the background. But when I'm viewing it on my LCD screen, it's tiny, just a slither of land in the distance. So I really want to bring that up into the image as well to really draw the eye through to the image so we can really see what's going on in the background as well. Now there's lots of difficulties, shall we say, with this shot. I've got a bit of wind, so it's blowing the flower around. I'm having to focus stack the foreground as well because I'm so close to this flower. And I really want to get the rocks sharp here. And obviously, as we take the shot with a different focal length in the background, we'll be focusing on that anyway, so that'll get the background in sharp focus. So before I take the shot, I just want to talk about settings because this is very important for a shot like this. Now, really, we want to shoot everything in manual mode. That includes the white balance. So I've set my white balance to daylight, and that means as I take the 3 or 4 different shots, all of the color is going to be the same in each individual image, which is going to help when we blend those images together later on. So yeah, white balance in manual. Everything else in manual as well, so my shutter speed, my aperture and my ISO all in manual mode. So at the minute I'm at ISO 125 f11 and hundredths of a second. I'm manually focusing on different parts of the image as I take the shots as well to make sure I nail my focus. And I've also got the 2-second timer on, which means I don't introduce any camera shake into the image as well. So lots of things to think about. I've probably spent maybe an hour on this shot already just setting it up. So I think it's worth sticking around and getting the best out of it. Let's go and take the shot now. So the first one, I'm going to focus on that daisy there, take the shot, then focus on the rock just beyond it. And obviously we don't need to take one for the island itself because that is going to be the next shot when we swap the lenses over. So let's do that now. So we swapped the lenses over. Before I had the 13mm Viltrox lens on, which is my wide angle lens of choice. And now I've got the 16-55 zoom lens on, which is your 24-70 equivalent if you're on full frame. And I'm fully zoomed out, so 16mm. So that's only 3mm more zoomed in than we were with a wide angle lens. So not a huge amount, but I'm going to take a shot at that, focusing on the island. And then I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. Take another shot. And I'm going to do this probably 5 times just to make sure that I've got some images to work with when I get back. So I'm not 100% sure which one I'm going to choose right now, but if I've got options when I get back, that's going to be very, very beneficial indeed. So yeah, I'll take another one. It must be at about sort of 18 mil now. I don't want to make this shot look ridiculous. I don't want to, make it, I don't want to fake it. I just want to make it look more natural. I want to make it look like I'm seeing it here. And I think that's the object of this whole exercise, really. So that's all of the images captured for this specific scene. It's time to get these images back to the computer now and go through the post-processing stage quickly, just show you how I blend all of these images together and see what the end result is like and see whether it was a worthwhile exercise. So what a fantastic place that is, such wonderful views, and the turquoise colours up there are just incredible. Now, I never really got great light, but I don't think that mattered too much, as the framing of the shot and the moody skies kind of draw the eye into the frame. So I think that worked out quite well. So let's take a look at the images here that I'm going to be using for this composite and how the different focal lengths look. So if you look up in the top left-hand corner, you can see the focal length that we're on. And as you can see, this is the wide shot. And remember, we took 3 images to allow us to increase our depth of field, so everything is nice and sharp. So the first was on the flower, then on the rock, and then on the cliffs in the background. Now, I've run a quick edit on these just to boost the saturation and the contrast, but nothing too extreme. So as you can see from the wide shot, the island looks tiny and it's actually quite difficult to see what it actually is. And that's not how it looked when I was there. In fact, the island really dominated the background. So with this focal length blending technique, we can make it look more realistic. So let's have a quick look at how the different focal lengths look. As you can see, I've got 5 different focal lengths, one at 16, one at 18, one at 23, one at 27, and one at 31. And I think the one I'm going to choose is the 18mm one. Now that's only 5mm tighter than our wide shot, and I think this is the key point. I don't want to make it look bigger than it actually was. I'm trying to make it look more natural. So yeah, just a tiny increase really. So as mentioned, because I was really close to the flower, I needed to focus stack this image. So let's quickly do that first. So first of all, we're going to highlight all 3 foreground images by holding Command and clicking on each one. And then we're going to right click, edit in and open as layers in Photoshop. That's going to bring up the 3 images in Photoshop stacked as layers. The next step is to align those layers so they're all lined up nicely, because even though I was using a tripod, there could have been a little bit of movement as I maybe touch the camera during refocusing. So to do this, we're going to click on the top one, hold Shift and then click on the bottom one to highlight them all, then come up to Edit and Auto Align Layers, and Photoshop will align them all for us. Next, while the layers are still highlighted, go back up to Edit and click Auto Blend Layers and Stack Images. Now Photoshop will blend those 3 images, so we've got everything in focus. So as you can see, Photoshop's done a pretty decent job. So that's the focus stack finished. So I'm just going to flatten these layers by coming up to Layer, Flatten Image, and that's just going to merge those layers into one, which keeps things nice and simple for the next part, which is where we're going to blend our background image. So let's go back to Lightroom and select our slightly tighter background photo and click Edit in and Open in Photoshop. So what we need to do now is copy this photo and paste it onto the foreground image. So I'm going to press Command and A to select everything and then press Command and C to copy it. Then go to our foreground shot and press Command and V to paste it. And as you can see, that's now added it to the layers panel above our foreground shot. I'm actually going to drop the opacity down a little bit just to help us see the image below, to help us get the horizons correct. Yep, I think that looks about right. Then I'm just going to bring my opacity back up to 100. So I'm actually going to swap these layers around now because it's going to help with our selection when we come to the masking process. So we just need to unlock the little padlock symbol and drag the bottom layer above the top one. So that's easy enough to do, just quickly drag it above and there we are. Now I'm going to grab my quick selection tool, which is over here on the left, or you can press W on the keyboard and drag the box over the sky and island, and hopefully it's going to select that area for us. So next we're going to select the mask, and that's going to add a mask to our selection. Now, as you can see, it's masked out the wrong part of the image. Remember, black reveals the layer below. So what I need to do is invert the layer mask by clicking the mask and pressing Command and I. And as you can see now, the mask is on the correct section. Now the mask still needs a few tweaks, but by using the quick selection tool, it really helped with those tricky parts around the edges of the cliff. Next up, we just need to blend in the bottom part of the island with the image below, because the selection tool was quite abrupt. There's also a bit on the left which needs some attention. So let's grab our brush, zoom in and just hit that area with some paint and blend those together. Now, I'm not too worried about this part on the left because I think I'm going to crop into the final image a little bit. So I'm just going to do that a little bit loosely. But if your blend looks too abrupt, you can always swap your paintbrush to white, drop the opacity to say 50%, and just paint in a little bit more just to help that transition look a little bit more natural, and just blend it in, just feather it in, you know, as and when required. All that's left to do now is to flatten the image as we did before. So let's go up to Layer, Flatten Image, and then click Save. And that's going to take this image back into our Lightroom catalogue, saved as a TIFF file. So I did a few edits to the final image and cropped it in a touch, and here is the final result. And I actually think this worked really well for this shot, and it gave us a much more natural looking composition. So here is the before and after photo. Let me know if you think it enhanced the composition or not. It'd be great to hear your thoughts on this. This is obviously not for everybody, so yeah, please do let me know. So this technique can be used for multiple genres of photography, not just landscapes, but I actually think this was quite an easy example because I've got that expanse of ocean separating my background from my foreground. You know, if you've got a more complex scene like overlapping tree branches, then it would definitely get a lot more difficult to mask. But I definitely think it's a technique worth knowing, and hopefully you've picked up a few tips along the way. If you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll like this one up here, and why not check out my landscape photography ebook all about composition, which is linked up here and also down in the video description. Thanks for watching. I do hope to see you all again next week, where we'll be out shooting some landscapes once more. Take care.